The forbidden species Jack Harrow stood at the edge of the alien forest. His boots sank slightly into the silver-colored soil, soft like ash. Above him, two suns burned through a purple sky, casting strange shadows across the trees. He had landed on the planet Varelia only a few hours ago, but already he could feel the air buzzing with something. Wrong. This place was beautiful. Too beautiful. And too quiet. Jack adjusted the scanner on his wrist. He wasn't supposed to be here alone, but the rest of his team had been called back due to political tensions with the Varelian Empire. So, now he was here, on one of the most mysterious planets in the galaxy, where no human had ever touched a Varelian female and lived. He had heard the warnings back at the station. Never look one in the eye. Never get close to them. Touching a Varelian woman, that's suicide. But those were just stories, right? Suddenly a loud scream tore through the air. It wasn't human, but it sounded close, high-pitched, full of pain and fear. Jack's heart jumped. He didn't think. He just ran. He pushed through thick blue leaves and glowing vines. Birds scattered above him, making sharp clicking sounds as they flew. The scream came again, weaker this time. Jack slid down a short hill and found her. A girl, clearly Varelian, lay on the ground, tangled in thorny roots. Her leg was bleeding, glowing softly where her silver blood met the air. Her skin shimmered like pearls, and long black hair spilled around her face. Her body was wrapped in elegant, skin-tight robes that looked part armor, part silk. She opened her eyes, saw Jack, and froze. He stopped too. They stared at each other for a long second. Jack could feel his own heartbeat pounding. He remembered the stories. Don't look them in the eyes. But her eyes weren't frightening. They were full of fear. Please, she whispered in a trembling voice. Go. Don't touch me. I'm not going to hurt you, Jack said carefully. You're injured. She tried to crawl away, but the vines held her leg tight. She winced in pain. Let me help, Jack said, stepping forward. No, she cried, reaching out as if to stop him. If you touch me, you'll die. Jack frowned. I'll take my chances. She stared at him, wide-eyed, as he bent down and carefully pulled the thorns away from her leg. His fingers brushed her skin. Nothing happened. No shock, no burning, no death. The girl gasped. So did Jack. I'm still alive, he said slowly, confused. She looked down at her leg, then back at him. That's not possible. Jack gently lifted her in his arms. Her body was warm and light. She didn't fight him now, she was too weak. But her voice shook. Who are you? Jack Harrow, human explorer. And you? Era, she whispered. My name is Era. He carried her back through the forest, carefully avoiding patrol sensors and listening for strange sounds. He had left his shuttle nearby, hidden under cloaking tech. It wasn't safe to bring her on board, but leaving her out here meant death. When they reached the ship, Jack laid Era on the soft bunk inside. She looked small now, afraid, but something about her felt strong too. He gave her water, wrapped her wound, and still, he didn't die. Why am I not dead? He asked quietly. Era didn't answer at first. She looked away, then finally said, You shouldn't be able to touch me, no human can, that is what our people say. Then maybe they're wrong. She looked up at him. Or maybe I'm cursed. Outside, the wind picked up. A faint hum buzzed through the air, Varelian drones. They were looking for something, or someone. Jack narrowed his eyes. They're searching for you, aren't they? Era nodded slowly. They'll kill you if they find me here. Jack stepped between her and the door. Let them try. For a moment, neither of them spoke. In the silence, something passed between them. Not trust yet, but a beginning. He had touched the forbidden and lived. But deep inside, Jack knew this was just the start of something far bigger. Something dangerous. Something no other human had ever dared. The girl named Era Jack. sat inside his small ship, staring at the strange girl sleeping on his bunk. Her silver hair glowed faintly in the dark room. Her breathing was soft, steady, but her face looked troubled, even in sleep. She had told him her name was Era. She had also told him that touching her should have killed him. But Jack was alive. He stood up quietly and checked the ship's outer sensors. The Varelian drones were flying low, searching the forest. Red dots blinked on the radar, getting closer. He didn't know much about Varelians. Only the basics, what Earth's diplomats had warned: do not interfere with their females. They are sacred. Breaking that rule means war. Jack didn't care about rules right now. He cared about Era, and why she seemed so different from what the stories said. Suddenly, Era groaned and opened her eyes. For a moment, she looked confused. Then she sat up fast. "Where are we?" she asked. "My ship," Jack replied. "You fainted. I brought you here. You shouldn't have. They'll track me. They'll punish you." "I'll take the risk," Jack said. "I'm not leaving you out there." Era stared at him, searching his face. "Why are you helping me?" Jack gave a small smile. "Maybe because you screamed and I heard you." Era looked down at her leg. Jack had bandaged it with care. No alien tech, just simple human hands, and she was still alive. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Humans who touched us, they always died." Jack leaned forward. "But I didn't. So maybe you're not like the others?" Era looked away. Her eyes filled with something: shame, fear. "I'm not," she said quietly. "I was born wrong." Jack sat down across from her. "Tell me." Era took a long breath. Her voice was low but steady. "My people believe we are pure, untouchable. Our bodies carry something, some energy, that kills other species on contact. That's why no one dares to come near." Jack nodded. "And you?" "I was born with a mark," she said, rolling up her sleeve. A strange spiral symbol. Dark blue glowed faintly on her arm. "They call it the mark of the tainted. It means my blood is mixed." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Mixed with what?" "No one knows. My mother never said. But from the day I was born, they called me a curse. I lived alone. I wasn't allowed near others, not even other Varelians." Jack felt a tight knot form in his chest. "That's cruel." Era looked surprised. "Most people say it's justice, that I'm dangerous. Not to me." Era blinked at him. Her silver eyes softened a little. "I felt something when you touched me," she whispered. "Not pain, not fear, something else." Jack leaned closer. "What did you feel?" She hesitated. "Warmth." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jack stood and walked to the control panel. The drone signals were circling closer now, maybe 20 minutes before they scanned his ship. "They'll find us," he said, "unless we leave now." Era's eyes widened. "Leave Varelia? I can't. My people will never let me return." "You said they already rejected you," Jack said gently. "So come with me. I'll keep you safe." She looked uncertain. "But why would you risk your life for me?" Jack looked at her serious now. "Because I think you're the first Varelian who's ever told the truth." Era stared at him for a long time, then she slowly nodded. Jack helped her to the co-pilot seat. She winced as her leg moved but didn't complain. He started the engines, quietly, using silent drive mode. The ship lifted off the ground, rising above the silver trees. Below, the Varelian drone swept the forest. Too late. As the stars filled the sky outside, Era looked at Earth on the nav screen. It was far. Very far. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Jack gave a small grin. "Now, we find out what makes you so special." Era smiled for the first time. Somewhere deep in the forest, alarms began to ring. The Varelians had found the place where Jack's ship had been, but Jack and Era were already gone, and the universe had no idea what was coming next. Touch of the outcast. The ship floated in the quiet of deep space, far from Varelia's reach. Stars stretched like frozen sparks outside the window. Inside, Ira sat beside Jack in the co-pilot seat, holding a hot drink in her hands, still unsure how to feel. It had only been 2 days since she left the planet that cursed her at birth. 2 days since she touched a human and didn't kill him. 2 days since someone looked at her with kindness instead of fear. But now came the real problem. What was she supposed to be now? Jack walked over with a fresh bandage. Time to change that wrap. Era nodded and lifted her injured leg. As Jack gently unwrapped the old bandage, she studied his face again. His hands were steady, warm, strong, and still. Not dying from her touch. "You know," she said softly, "even my own mother never held me." Jack looked up. "Never?" She said. "The mark on my arm meant the gods had rejected me. I was raised by temple workers who weren't allowed to speak to me unless giving orders. I wasn't even allowed to sit with others during meals." Jack frowned. "That's horrible." Era looked down at her glowing silver fingers. "I got used to it. I was told I would never be touched, never be loved, never be chosen." Jack gently finished the bandage. "Well, I think they were wrong." Era blinked. "I've seen monsters." "You're not one of them," Jack said. "You're brave. You helped me pilot the ship, even while injured. You've shown more strength than most warriors I've known." Era gave a small smile. "You say that now. But when others find out what I am, what I can do, they'll call me a danger again." Jack stood up. "Let them try. They'd have to go through me first." Era stared at him for a moment, then slowly said, "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because I might start believing them." Just then the ship's alarm beeped. Jack checked the radar. A single Varelian patrol ship had jumped into the sector. Smaller than theirs, but fast. "Looks like they tracked our signal," he muttered. Ira stiffened. "They'll come for me." Jack looked over. "Then we fight." "No," Ira said, standing. "Let me try something first." She walked to the ship's comm station and opened the frequency. Her voice was clear, steady, and full of pain. "This is Era of House, Viltana, daughter of the outcast, touched and marked. I am not a danger, I am not a curse, and I will not run anymore." A pause. Then a deep voice answered from the other ship. "Ira, is it true? You touched the human?" "Yes," she replied. "And he lives. You should be dead." "I'm not," she said. "Which means the old stories are lies." Another pause. "Return with us. The High Circle must see this." Jack leaned in. "It could be a trap." Era shook her head. "No. If I keep running, I stay. A curse. If I go back, maybe I become something else." Jack didn't like it, but he saw the fire in her eyes. She wasn't the scared girl from the forest anymore. She was done hiding. "I'm coming with you," he said firmly. Era nodded. Then we faced them together. They docked with the patrol ship minutes later. As the hatch opened, Era stepped forward, not as an exile but as someone who had finally found her own power. And Jack followed behind her, the only human who had ever touched a Varelian female. And survived. They didn't know what waited for them on the other side of the door, but they walked through it anyway, together, breaking the curse. The silver doors of the Varelian sky chamber slid open with a hiss. Inside stood 12 tall figures, cloaked in robes that shimmered like flowing stars. Each member of the High Circle sat on crystal thrones, looking down at Era like she was a shadow returned from the dead. Jack stood beside her. He was the only human in the room. He could feel the pressure in the air, not from gravity but from judgment. Era took one slow step forward. Her injured leg still ached, but she didn't let it show. She wore a simple white robe now, no armor, no jewelry, just herself. One of the counselors, a sharp-faced woman with glowing green eyes, leaned forward. "You are Ira Veltana, the marked one, the untouchable." I was, Ira said. Her voice echoed through the chamber. But not anymore. A murmur rose from the council. Another member, older with silver rings circling his neck, spoke next. You touched a human, and he did not perish. Ira nodded. Yes, this is Jack Harrow. He saved my life. Jack gave a short nod. Nice to meet you too, he muttered under his breath. Blasphemy, the woman snapped. This breaks the law of touch. Our purity must not be mixed. The curse. There is no curse, Ira interrupted. You've used it as a cage, a lie, a way to control us. Gasps filled the hall. I lived my whole life in silence, she said, her voice louder now. Alone. Because you said my skin was poison. Because I was born different. But if my touch is deadly, why is this human still breathing? Jack took a step forward. Still breathing. Still very alive, thanks. The council was stunned. The glowing panels above flickered. Show us, the old one demanded. Prove it. Jack looked at Ira. She gave a small nod. Slowly, Jack reached out his hand. Ira raised hers. Their fingers touched. Nothing happened. No shock. No blast. No pain. Only warmth. Gasps turned into shouts. One counselor stood in fear. Another stepped, back hand reaching for a weapon. She is a threat, someone yelled. The curse is broken, so she must be cursed no more. She must be human. I am not human, Ira said sharply. I am Varelian. I was born here. I carry the light of our ancestors in my blood, but maybe my blood also carries hope. Jack raised his voice now. You've been hiding behind fear. But look at her. She's alive. I'm alive. Maybe it's not her who's dangerous. Maybe it's your lies. The silence was deep. The council didn't know what to say. Then a figure stepped into the chamber. A woman, tall, dressed in heavy armor with gold patterns. Her face was hard, her voice colder than ice. Ira. Ira froze. Mother. It was High General Veltana, commander of the Varelian armies, and Ira's own blood. You broke the law, her mother said. You brought shame. And now, you stand here as if you deserve respect. Ira trembled but didn't look away. All my life I wanted your respect, she said. But I will not beg for it anymore. I will speak my truth. And if that brings shame, then let the whole galaxy see it. Jack stepped forward again. You should be proud of her. The general's eyes flared. You dare speak to me, human? I do, because your daughter has more courage than this entire room. Silence. Then, without warning, Ira's mother raised her hand and slapped her across the face. The sound echoed like thunder, but Ira didn't cry. She didn't fall. She stood tall, eyes filled with quiet fire. And then something happened. No one expected. Ira reached forward and hugged her mother. Gasps filled the room again. Ira whispered, Even if you never wanted me, I still love you. The general didn't move. Then her arm slowly came up and hugged her daughter back. Tears filled her eyes. I was told, if I touched you, I would die, she whispered. You didn't, Ira said. She looked back at the council. None of you will. That was the moment everything changed. The hidden history. The high circle was silent. Even the walls, which usually glowed with soft light, seemed dim after Ira's bold act. For the first time in centuries, a Varelian female had been touched, and had touched others, without death following. But while some in the chamber looked shocked, others looked afraid. Jack noticed it right away. Fear, not from Ira's power, but from what her existence revealed. That night, back on the Varelian patrol vessel, Ira sat with Jack in a quiet room. She looked tired, not just in her body, but deep in her soul. She rubbed the mark on her arm slowly. They didn't even question the law, she said. They just believed it. For centuries. Maybe, Jack said carefully. That's because someone wanted it that way. Era looked up. You think it's not a mistake, but a plan? Jack nodded. What if the curse was never real? What if someone long ago created the story so no one would ask questions? Era's eyes narrowed. But why? Who would gain anything by keeping our people apart? By making us afraid to touch? Just then, the ship's door opened. An old Varelian man walked in. His skin shimmered faintly, and he wore robes lined with ancient symbols. His eyes were soft, but alert. Elder Euron, Era said in surprise. I haven't seen you since I was a child. Euron nodded kindly. You were too young to remember, but I remember you well. I held you once, before the order came. What order? He looked at Jack, then back at Era. The order to never touch you again. Jack stepped closer. You know something, don't you? Euron gave a tired sigh. I have kept this secret for too long, but maybe the galaxy is finally ready to hear it. He reached into his robe and pulled out a small glowing tablet. It flickered, then lit up, showing an old painting. Two figures, one human, one Varelian, stood hand in hand smiling. This is from the time before the laws, Euron said. Before the High Circle erased our true history, Ira gasped. Is that a Varelian woman with a human man? Euron nodded. Your great-grandmother, and her bondmate. Jack raised an eyebrow. They were mates? More than that, Euron said. They were leaders of a union between Earth and Virelia, a time of peace, of shared blood, but not everyone wanted that. Ira leaned forward. What happened? Euron's voice grew sad. Jealousy, fear. A group inside the High Circle feared losing control. They spread lies, said the human blood was corrupting us, that it caused sickness, death. Jack clenched his fists. So they made up the curse? They erased the Union, Euron said. They burned records. Anyone born of mixed blood was labeled cursed. You, Era, are proof of a truth they wanted buried. Era stood slowly. Her voice trembled with anger. So my entire life, the pain, the shame, it was all built on a lie? Euron nodded. I was called poison, she whispered. But I was a bridge. Tears filled her eyes. But she didn't cry. She stood tall. I need to show this to the people, she said. They deserve to know. Euron placed the tablet in her hands. Then be careful. The truth is powerful and dangerous. Just then, alarms blared through the ship. Jack ran to the console. It's a royal fleet, 10 ships, coming fast. They're not here for peace, Era said coldly. They're here to silence me. Jack looked at her. What do we do? Era stared at the tablet, the image of her great-grandmother glowing softly in her hands. We don't run, she said. We broadcast. Within minutes, Jack and Era hacked into the Varelian transmission channels. Jack boosted the signal. Ira stepped in front of the camera. She held the tablet up. My name is Ira Veltana, she said. I was born with the mark of shame. But it is not a curse, it is a legacy. My blood carries truth, and so does yours. Behind her, the image of the human and Varelian couple filled the screen. This is our history. They tried to bury it. But I carry it still. We are not cursed. We are connected, and I will not let them erase that again. She ended the message. Outside, the fleet ships were still closing in, but inside messages began pouring in. From civilians, from soldiers, from low-ranking council members. Words like, we believe you. My daughter has the mark too. Tell us more. Era looked at Jack. They're listening. Jack nodded. Now, let's make sure they hear everything. The Bond Beyond Species Era stood on the deck of the Varelian cruiser, staring at the stars while the ship floated between two massive planets. Behind her, Jack worked on stabilizing the broadcast relay. The entire system had overheated from the message they sent. But it had worked. People across Virelia had seen the truth. Millions had watched her speech. and now the entire empire was in chaos. Era's name had gone from cursed to something far more dangerous, chosen, but not everyone celebrated. A message crackled through the console. Jack tapped the panel. "This is Commander Trallick, of the Royal Guard. Surrender the exile girl and the human immediately, or we will destroy your ship." Era's face turned cold. So now they send death threats instead of silence. Jack looked at her. "They're scared? That's good. That means you're winning." Era gave a small, tired smile. "Winning feels heavy." She walked to the center of the ship where a small shrine room remained from the old crew. Inside, the room was filled with soft lights and holograms of stars. It was peaceful. Jack followed her in. "What's this place?" he asked. Era placed a hand on one of the glowing symbols on the wall. "It's where Varelians used to bond," she said softly. "Before the laws, before the fear. Two souls would come here, stand beneath the stars, and promise loyalty." Jack looked around. "A place for love?" She nodded. "Not just love, trust, unity." Jack stood quietly beside her. "You know," he said, "back on Earth, I never felt like I belonged. Always wandering, never settling." Era looked at him. "And now?" He turned to her. "Now I think I understand what home feels like." Era blinked. Her voice trembled. "Even though I'm not human? Even though I'm marked?" "You're more human than most people I've met," Jack said. "And that mark, it's not shame. It's proof that you've survived something no one else could." He took her hand. Era looked at their joined fingers. "No pain," she whispered. "No curse," Jack said. The soft lights in the shrine began to respond, glowing brighter. The ship's old bonding sensors still worked. They shimmered with color as Era and Jack stood together. Suddenly, Era stepped back. "I shouldn't." "Why not?" She looked torn. "If we bond, it becomes permanent. Our names will be linked. Across the galaxy. We'll be hunted together." Jack stepped closer. "Or remembered together." Her breath caught. "I don't want to doom you," she whispered. Jack smiled. "Era, you saved me. You gave me something to fight for. I choose you. If this is doom, then I accept it." Ira hesitated one last moment, then placed her other hand on his chest. The shrine pulsed around them. In ancient Varelian, the system spoke. Bond accepted. Human and Varelian joined. Unity confirmed. Ira closed her eyes. "It's done." Outside, alarms suddenly rang. A Varelian battleship had locked weapons on them. Jack jumped to the controls. "We have incoming," Era followed. "Then we fight as one." The targeting alarm screamed. A missile launched from the enemy ship. But before it hit, another ship appeared, sliding in like a silver arrow, a transport carrier, civilian markings. It took the hit for them. Era gasped. "They protected us?" A message popped up. "You speak the truth, Era. We stand with you. You are not alone." More signals came in, ships joining their side. Small ones, old ones, civilian crafts, even a few military deserters. Jack looked out the window. A fleet was forming. Not huge, but real. Era's voice was calm. "They don't need to be powerful. They just need to believe." Jack turned to her. "They're following you, Era." She squeezed his hand. "Us, Jack." Then the two of them stood at the window of the cruiser, watching their new fleet rise from the shadows. The first union of human and Varelian in centuries wasn't just alive. It was about to lead a revolution. A new dawn for Varelia, for the E. First time in 1,000 years, the twin moons of Varelia hung silently over a sky no longer watched by fear, but by hope. The capital city floated high above the clouds, towers of light and glass stretching into the heavens. Below it, on the ground, thousands of Varelians and humans gathered, some holding banners, some holding their breath. They had come to see it for themselves, to witness the moment history either broke or began again. And at the center of it all stood Era Veltana, The girl once cursed, now called the bonded one. She wore no crown, no armor, only a simple robe stitched with the old symbol of unity. 2 hands, one human, one Varelian, touching with no fear between them. At her side stood Jack Harrow, the man who had once been just an explorer, but now was so much more. The speech that stopped the world, the crowd buzzed with nervous energy. Ships hovered in the sky above, carrying nobles, soldiers, watchers from other planets. The High Circle had been forced to hold a public council. The people demanded it. Too many had seen the truth Era had broadcast. Too many had felt the lie crack under its own weight. Era stepped up to the glowing platform at the center. A global stream was active. Billions watched. She began with no speech in hand, only her voice. They called me a danger. They said my touch was death, that my mark was shame, that I was not supposed to be born. But look at me. She held up her hand. Jack stepped forward and held it. This man is still alive. We bonded, and we are still here. You can call that a miracle, but I call it truth. The crowd fell into silence. The curse never existed. The only disease we've carried was fear. Fear of change. Fear of love. Fear of what happens when walls fall down. I was told I didn't belong, that I would destroy everything, but I see now. I was born to build something new. And I am not alone anymore. Behind her, the screen lit up with messages. Citizens from every province, other races, even some former council members. I have the mark too. My sister touched a human. He lived. We believe in Era. Let her speak for us. Tears fell from the eyes of an elder Varelian watching from the crowd. He had once voted to exile Era's mother. Now he placed his walking staff on the ground and knelt. Others followed. Dozens. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Not to a queen, not to a god, but to a truth they had all been waiting for. But not everyone knelt. High General Veltana, Era's mother, stepped out from the shadows of the council steps. Her armor shone with battle-worn pride. She carried a blade known as First Light, once gifted to the Varelians by the humans long ago. She looked at her daughter, then at Jack. Step away from her, she said coldly to him. The crowd tensed. 1,000 rifles aimed. Soldiers stood, frozen. Era didn't move. Jack looked her mother in the eye. No, the general's voice cracked. I was trained to kill for our laws. I bled to protect them. Era stepped forward. And now, mother, you can choose to protect something greater. The general looked at her blade, then dropped it. She walked to Era, looked at her hand, and, trembling, touched it. The crowd gasped again. Still, nothing happened. Only a mother's hand holding her daughter's. I was wrong, she whispered. So was our world. 3 days later, the High Circle held the first open planetary vote in Varelian history. The question was simple. Should the law of touch be abolished and all species be allowed equal bonding rights under the Unity Accord? The result: 4%. Yes. The law was erased. Statues were torn down, not with anger but with songs. In their place, murals of Era and Jack were painted across cities, not as rulers, not as perfect icons, but as the first to love without fear. 2 weeks later, on a floating garden platform lit by moonlight, Era and Jack stood beneath a ceremonial arch made of silver vines and blue crystal. No guards, no weapons, only laughter, music. Varelians and humans danced together. The ceremony was not about tradition, it was about freedom. An elder spoke the new bond rite, one never said aloud before now. Let this union be the first not of flesh or name, but of choice, of shared breath, of joined paths. Era placed her hand over Jack's heart. Jack touched her glowing cheek. I was never meant to belong anywhere, he whispered, smiling. Until I met you, Era whispered back. And I was never meant to be touched, until you dared. The Lights around them shimmered. They kissed. And this time the whole galaxy didn't hold its breath in fear. It cheered. In the years to come, the story of Era and Jack would be taught to children across both worlds. The curse became a myth of the past. The Unity Accord opened the way for more species to share knowledge, culture, and family. Human Varelian schools were built, mixed families were welcomed, and every year on the night of the twin moons, couples of all races walked together beneath the stars and touched hands without fear. No one dared to get close to the females of this alien race, until one human did. And in doing so, he didn't just change one life, he changed a world.